It's Monday at the Texas High School Coaches Association Convention and Coaches School right here at the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center. I'm Jay Riley with Texas Sports Productions. Joining me now is the longtime head coach of the O'Connor Panthers, David Malesky. Coach, after a wacky year, are we going to start on time? Of course we are, right?
Best indication, yes, we are, and that's
No
how
promises.
everybody's planning on.
Yeah, well, what's carrying over from last year to this year as far as procedures and protocols? We know that we hear at least that there's a little uptick in positive cases. Are you still holding to what y'all did last year to make sure you get to
For the
play?
most part, we are. I mean, they've relaxed some of the the protocols that we had for so long.
Right.
This past summer, but still, there's things that have been built in and that we've actually, unfortunately, become accustomed to doing that we're continuing to do, and so we haven't gotten a final. Okay, we're starting the fall seasons like this. I imagine that's going to be coming out here in the next week or so, and my understanding is that it's going to be more geared from each district, what their guidelines and protocols are going to be. So to answer your question, we're still kind of operating a little bit like we have been, but there have been some they've eased some things.
Well, good. I mean,
Yes.
obviously trying to get back to some form of normalcy. And obviously the question about the pandemic has got to come, but let's talk about real stuff. Let's talk about the O'Connor Panthers.
Right.
Last year wasn't the year that most people expect out of O'Connor. You've built a program over there, so year after year, little down last year, still a very good football team. What do you see coming out? What do you have coming back, and what do we have to look forward to that's new?
Well, I think that the biggest thing is the disappointment carryover that we had of not reaching the playoffs last year,
Right.
and not in our kids that we've got back realizing that we weren't as good as what we felt like we should have been, and made mistakes that cost us, and so consequently we didn't make the playoffs and didn't earn. And I talk about it all the time, earning the right to play in the playoffs, and we didn't. And so I think, to answer your question, that's a huge carryover. And what that means and what that looks like is we're going to be young in a lot of places. But we've had our off-season, and thankfully of having that, and having spring football and the things our kids have done so far this summer have given us a lot of encouragement. I think they're really excited. I think they see the possibilities of what we can be. But when we kick it off against Brandeis, on I think it's August the 27th on Thursday night. It's we're going to have lots of kids that are looking up in the stars and the lights and whatever else we're going to be young.
Well, there's two ways that a team can go after a disappointing season, and that's still disappointing, or the kids can take it as a challenge. It sounds like your kids, because of the culture at O'Connor, your kids have taken it as a challenge.
Well, you would like to think so, and that's what we're planning on, and that's what we keep pushing. And, it's not like we sit around and harp on it and talk about it all the time, but there is that little underlying whisper that, hey, we need to be the best we can be. We weren't happy. We weren't satisfied. And two, I think, you can sit there and build everything around, hey, we just want to get in the playoffs. Or you can do the flip, what I think is the flip of that, and we want to be the best we can be. And I think if you just say, okay, our goal is just to get in the playoffs, then, all right, you get there, then what?
Right.
But if it's the reverse, and this is kind of really how we've always built our program, and our main focus is let's be the best we can be. And wherever that takes us, it takes us. But at the end, we're never going to be disappointed, regardless of how far we get, if we were the best we were at the time, and whenever our season's over, if we did the best we can. And that was the biggest thing for me personally as a coach. I did not feel like we were as good as our talent, our abilities, all that stuff said we could have been. And that bothers me because you feel like you got control over that. At some point you may end up playing somebody that's just a booger bear, and they're better than you are.
Right.
Even though you're as good as you can be, they're still better than you are. Well, that's okay. But when you come up short because of your own doing, that bothers me, that bothers us. And so summing all that up, I really feel like I don't feel like it, I know it because that's who we try to be is our job is to go out and be the very best that we can be week in and week out.
Well, that's the culture that you've built over there. Over how many years have you been at O'Connor now?
Well, I'm going into my 22nd year as a coach, and my 12th as
I thought 12.
The head coach.
Well, it's quite a program, and each school has an identity to me. When I think of this school, I think of it. When I think of O'Connor, I think of a big athletic offensive line. We're going to see that again. Is that continuing? There's something in the water in Helotes or something, because you're Logan Pars and guys like that.
No, we don't have Logan Pars and Browns, and we don't have all those guys. We're probably not going. When people see us this year, they're going to say, "Oh, they're not as big as they have been," and which is fine. We're adapting, and there's going to be some new looks out of O'Connor this coming year. To adapt to what we have. But, I think we're going to be a really physical football team. Now, what does all that mean? I don't know. I just base that off of how things went spring football and, what we see coming up.
The other thing I think about is a very fun-to-watch quarterback. It seems like you've always got one that is just a ton of fun. Again,
right.
We got another one coming?
I think we're going to have a couple kids that are going to end up probably alternating series this year. And until something shakes out, and we'll see where that goes. And, we've had several seasons that we've alternated kids from the first game all the way through the playoffs. And so we're just going to kind of see where it is, and each one of them brings a little bit different element to the game. And so it's going to be interesting to see how all that shakes out, for sure.
Also a very aggressive defense, and anything can happen special teams.
Right.
Those are signatures. Now, that's a David Malesky signature. I'll never forget the game against Steele when you onside kicked, 4 times?
Something like that.
That was a lot of fun to watch. I remember interviewing you before that game, and I was afraid for my life. You were so intense, ready to play that game. I think you'd lost a couple of years in a row to Steele, and you knew your team was ready to go, and you coached lights out. And I really believe it was 3 or 4 times you onside kicked, and I think you got it 3 times out of the 4. That was a lot of fun to watch. Talk about the district. Marshall's come back in, and Taft has come back in. Warren is Warren, and Stevens is Stevens. And if you go to sleep on it, there was 6, 7 teams vying for 4 playoff spots last year.
If you go back to previous interviews that I've done leading up to mini seasons, I've what I'm getting ready to say, I've said it then, and I want to say it again, that I don't think our district, the Northside district, gets necessarily the credit that it needs to, that it deserves. And there's been some teams over the years that historically have not just been great in the win column. But playing those guys every week, week in, week out, year in, year out, if you don't show up to play your best, you're going to get beat. And that was no different last year. And there were some teams, as you mentioned, that really came up and did an unbelievable job and were good representation for our district in the playoffs. And so, it's not going to be any different this year. Who's going to be the dude? It can be a lot of people, I think.
I couldn't agree with you more. We look through that district. Brennan's going to be good. Ricky State is building something over there at Taft and Marshall. It seems like a culture shift at both of those places that now they believe they can beat anyone. Right. Taft has always been a tough out for you, even in their 2 and 8 years. They'd play O'Connor down to the wire because of the rivalry, but now they're doing that week in, week out with everybody. And it's just a fun district to watch because anybody can beat anybody on any given Friday or Saturday or Thursday.
Without a doubt. And you go back to this past football season, we lost 2 games in the last series of the game. We lost them, and so that's how close that was, and so I don't anticipate this district being any different than it's just going to be who's going to end up filling the top 4 spots. It's who knows.
But you wouldn't have it any other way, right?
Of course not.
You got to get if you're going to make the playoffs, you better have played some teams that are good so you can make a run in the playoffs.
And that's another deal that's always been important. for us at O'Connor is our non-district schedule. And, you know, we scrimmage Smithson Valley. And we've scrimmaged those guys for I don't know how many years. And you think, oh, holy smokes. Well, you need to get hit in the mouth real quick and figure out where you are. And then we go play some of the top teams in our area in non-district. Because
you got Johnson this year as one of them, for sure.
Brandeis and Johnson. So
it's hard to
exactly
think of Brandeis as being non-district, but it is in the
so
football district.
Right away, the first three people that we're going to line up that has absolutely nothing to do with whether we get in the playoffs or not, and it's going to have everything to do with helping us get in the playoffs, because it's going to help shape who our football team is and where are we good, where are we bad, what do we need to get better at. And there will be, you know, we'll end up starting guys in the scrimmage, start out with 11 guys on offense, 11 on defense, and I would be willing to suspect that by the time we get to the Marshall game that that'll be a little bit different lineup than it was early. And that's what that part of the year is for, is to figure out who you are, where are you, and how do we need to get where we want to go.
Exciting times.
Oh,
exciting
it is.
times.
That's great.
Coaches, school, obviously no school last year. How has this been different than years past? Because you had to skip a year. It's got to be good to see some of these guys you haven't seen in a while.
It is, and it hasn't been released yet, but the numbers in terms of attendance here is broken an all-time record. And,
oh, wow.
And that was after yesterday, and there's still more people who have shown up today to register, and there'll still be a few more tomorrow before the final numbers. And so that right there in itself, setting a record, is huge for the association. It's huge for the sport, and it just says a lot in terms of what everybody's missed. And that's one of the things that makes this profession special is that this is important, and guys getting together and seeing guys you hadn't seen in a while and shooting around and telling wild stories, and you know that's important for this profession.
You talk about 12 years at O'Connor, and there's been a lot of movement. I more and more I'm keeping up where coaches are going, and there's been a lot of movement in the last couple of years. I mean, 12 years in one place, but you see a guy here, he's here 2 years. Is that something we should come to expect now, a little more movement in coaching, or more of the David Maleskys that find a place and call it home?
I don't know. I can't speak for other people. I just, you know, in why is it like that? And I've got my own thoughts on that. But I mean, you look at college coaching, what's occurred there, and what is continually. And yes, that's different than high school, but I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I just know what I've done, and I'm thankful to have been at a place that I want to stay for 20. Have wanted to stay for 20-something years. And
one of the best infrastructures of community involvement that I've seen is what O'Connor has. Of course, Stan Lang as athletic director, and Dr. Woods, and the support system that Northside gives. But the O'Connor fan base. We did softball this year for the first time. We had the O'Connor Judson series, and it lit up our viewership and social media interaction, because the O'Connor fans just went crazy. The Judson fans went crazy. That kind of support system keeps you going too, doesn't it?
That's the one thing, and just sitting here thinking about it gives me chills that we missed last year that makes O'Connor a special place. We've had great kids, and we've had a lot of really, really good players in all our sports. But that community, I think we travel better than anybody in the greater San Antonio area, regardless of where we're playing, that there's a lot of people. And then you have the spirit organizations, you have the band, and you throw them in there, and it makes it a special place to play. And so you don't find that everywhere. And I think of it too in terms of it's an advantage for us versus seeing some of the other people and what their support is. And so we missed that last year, and I'm so looking forward and so excited. And I've already talked to our kids about it, that you know there's going to be things going on that we hadn't seen in 2 years at a varsity football game, and we need to make sure we do our part, which is win a football game.
Well, obviously, we will be covering every game that you do from a streaming level. I think we have you scheduled for 2 TV games, maybe 3. TV games on MeTV, along with the Big Game Coverage app, which is a huge deal for us to get the support from KSAT and their organization and their commitment to sports. The Big Game Coverage app, they've got the KSAT TV app. You can download it, stream the games on your TVs. It's going to be another big year for video streaming and TV and getting these kids more exposure. I'd say O'Connor was one, and I'm running a little bit long here, but O'Connor was one. I was getting Facebook posts and instant messages from all over the country, from grandmas and aunts and uncles thanking us for doing what we're doing. And it just proved what we wanted to do was give these kids more exposure and give more opportunities for families outside the market to watch the kids play, and in the band and the cheerleading, because we cover all of those as well. But O'Connor was the number one school where we got thank you so much for doing the first time I ever saw my grandson play or my nephew play. It was really, I guess y'all got them in Arizona and Colorado and places like that. So, David, all the best to you. Good luck to you. Thanks for taking time. I know you're trying to get around on something that you haven't been to in 2 years. So congratulations on the success at O'Connor. We wish you nothing but more success. And we'll be seeing you all season long.
Amen.
You're going to get tired of our faces.
That's all right. Go Panthers, go.
We'll be back with more of the Texas High School Coaches Association Convention and Coaches School in just a minute. I'm Jay Riley, and you're watching on TexasSportsProductions.com.